Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love talking about financial literacy. That's why we're honored to have with us Tosha Price, Business Development Manager with Ascend Federal Credit Union. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So thrilled to be here.
Well, when you talk about all the good, working with different organizations, nonprofits, churches, schools, there's a lot to unpack with how you help with financial literacy and education and so much more. But let's start with some background on Ascend Federal Credit Union. Give us a little bit of context there, and then we'll dive into all the good you do in the community.
Yeah, so Ascend is a credit union here in Middle Tennessee. We are the largest credit union in Middle Tennessee. We actually started in Tullahoma, Manchester area at the Arnold Air Force Base out there. So we used to be called ADC Credit Union. Then as we started expanding into the markets, we changed our name to Ascend. It still has the ADC in there. And then the little asterisk above, that is a representation of a plane. And so credit unions in general are people helping people. And so we are so grateful for the growth that we've had in Middle Tennessee and just continue to expand. And a big piece of that is, we want to be the most loved credit union in the communities that we serve. And so how we do that is by leading with a giving heart and also leading with that financial education, because we know that if we put a focus on that, then it not just impacts our members, but it's a generational impact. And so that's why we love the communities that we serve, and we love to provide the financial literacy programming that we do.
Touch on the difference and the importance of being a federal credit union.
Yeah, so most people are aware of credit unions and banks. Most people really do not know the difference between a bank and a credit union. And so that is a big piece that I emphasize whenever I do financial education, is because what I have learned just in the markets that we serve is that if you didn't have an existing account with the credit union, you don't even know if you're eligible. Some people think of it as like a club. I'm not sure if I can join or not. And so the credit unions are a little bit different. So both are financial institutions, meaning that they have the same types of products and services, meaning you can get, a savings account, checking account, any type of loan or lending that you want at either or, right? The main difference is that a bank is a for-profit and a credit union is a not-for-profit. That's why we have the emphasis on the people helping people. And so if you have an account at a bank, you are a customer, and anything that's left over at the end of the year goes back to stockholders, which would be, could be their customers, but could not be, right? At the credit union, each person that has an account with us is a member. There's a small $5 that's held in their account, so everyone owns an equal share. Our board of directors is unpaid and volunteer, and consists of our members. So it's members making decisions for other members. And then the main thing is that, at the end of the year, if we have anything left over, it goes back to our members in the form of bonus dividends, interest refunds, financial literacy resources to make sure that, we are helping everyone put their best financial foot forward.
So go ahead and dive in. When you talk about the education, the outreach, the financial literacy, how do you frame the work you do in the community? Because it's a lot and you work with a lot of different organizations. And so how do you frame that financial literacy, that education component for what you do?
Yeah, well, I think it's no surprise to anyone that just finances in general are a concern for most people. And so we work with a lot of nonprofits. We work with churches. We work with other organizations. We work with schools, because it's not something that's just a concern for one type of person or one place, right? And so we lead again with that giving heart. And so anybody that I meet, I always tout the programming that we offer. We have online programming to kind of meet people where they're at, in the form of modules, calculators that can be specific to them. You don't have to be a member of Ascend to utilize those resources. And then, of course, we have workshops, and we tie food a lot of time to that, because if you offer a free lunch, then yeah, sure, I'll come in and learn something to better my finances and get some free lunch in the interim. So That's kind of how we approach that. We don't try to target a specific industry or a specific area. We just try to go out into the community and lead with, hey, this is a focus for us. And if you have interest in utilizing any of these resources, we are here for you. And so a lot of that is at universities. We just wrapped up, actually, today is the last day of Financial Literacy Month. So most people don't realize that April is Financial Literacy Month. And so we do a lot of initiatives across Middle Tennessee to help put everyone put their best financial foot forward. Right. And so we did a lot of engagements at local universities like your MTSU, your TSU, your Fisk University, Nashville State Community College to help those students generationally. Right. But then we also offer a programming called Bonsai to K through 12 students as well. Because, the earlier that they start, the better they're setting their future self up for success. And so we just try to lead with that giving heart and all of the resources. And then if people want to utilize them, they will.
Talk about Bonsai, talk about working with the youth in terms of what are some of the key components that you all discuss? What does that look like? So I imagine banking, obviously, and financial
Absolutely.
planning. What are some of the core components?
Yeah, so a lot of that is budgeting, building a credit score and a credit report, using credit cards the right way, and how to save early, right? What we have realized, and you may or may not be aware of this, most people do not, but if you are a personal finance teacher in K through 12 schools, you probably don't have a concentration in that. You're probably a teacher that does some other type of subject, and we're told, "Hey, you're going to teach personal finance as an extra class this semester, right, or this year." And so what we found was that there was a significant gap, right, in just them having the programming that they need to help their students be the most successful. And so we found that offering that, we impacted over 30,000 students in K through 12 classes just in 2024 alone, because we offer it to all of the markets that we serve, and they can have that programming for free. We pay for it. And then they have something that can guide them and help the students learn the most that they can within that year or that semester.
This will carry us into the college students, the college graduates, obviously young professionals and adults of all ages. But
Yes.
when you talk about, you mentioned, using credit cards the right way. Go ahead and start sharing some tips. Let's start with credit cards. Give us one or two tips regarding credit cards.
Using credit cards the right way, you need to lead with the mindset of that is not your money, right? So most people do not think about the fact that a credit card is a loan. It's lending. It's their money, not your money. And most don't realize that the average interest rate on credit cards is 20%. So it's pretty hefty. And if you do not pay whatever balance that you put on that within their grace period, which is typically a 30-day grace period, then whatever you put on that credit card, you're spending that amount plus whatever interest that they're charging you. So as far as the right way to use a credit card is to look for something that's a lower interest rate. Especially with college students, most do not realize that there are college student credit cards that are their whole purpose is to help them build credit at a lower interest rate. And so at the credit union, ours is 9.9. So that's half of what the average typically is. And then if you can't, if you pay that balance off, then you're not paying extra via that interest. So you want to always make sure that you're paying the most that you can, completely pay it off if you can, and don't put anything on it unless you have the money in your checking account to do that, to go ahead and pay it off. Because if it carries over, that's where you're paying the extra for the things that you put on it. Again, it's just finding that lowest interest rate. If you don't want the temptation of debt, you can look at a secured credit card. But the average college student graduates with a $3,000 maxed out credit card and about $30,000 worth of student loan debt. And I always encourage them, do not be average. If you can't pay the full balance, pay as much as you can, because the lower that you make that minimum payment, the longer time frame and the more money that you're going to spend trying to pay that off.
Give us maybe one or two around the importance of your credit, the credit score, things you can do to help your credit score. What are one or two tips around that?
One or two tips around that I would say is if you owe anyone money, pay them. Do not be stubborn. Do not be stubborn. I can't tell you how many times in the credit union that we've had someone apply for some lending and I've seen a $14 collection for something that's medical, or maybe a gym membership where they didn't follow their policy and were stubborn and didn't pay that, and now joke's on them. It's on their credit report. Most do not realize if you have a derogatory remark on your credit report that it actually impacts your credit score and your report negatively for 7 years. So if you make a mistake, like me, I just forgot about a credit card payment when I was in college with my first ever credit card, and it negatively impacted my score and my report for 7 years. And I was one day late, so pay anyone. So number one tip, pay anyone that you owe money and pay them on time, because if you don't, then they can report that as a collection. It can negatively impact your score and your report. And then second thing is, don't think that getting a lot of different credit cards or one type of lending is going to boost your score and your report. You want to diversify what's on your credit report. So what I mean by that is different types of lending, right? So maybe I always say max 2 credit cards, maybe get a secured loan, an auto loan. That's what's going to help you get the highest score versus getting the same type of lending and a bunch of that. And then third, I would just say to not think that just because you pay your rent or your water or your electric or your phone bill, oh, I have great credit. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. The only entities that report good information on a monthly basis that, hey, he or she is paying me and they're paying me on time is any type of lending loans that you have. All of those other entities do not report good information. They only report negative information. So they're only going to report if you don't pay them. So a lot of people have that misconception of, oh, I have great credit, I pay those bills on time, when that's not the case.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. For families, give us one or two around home buying, savings, setting themselves up for the future, an emergency savings. Like, what are one or two for families for, putting themselves in the best position for success?
Yeah, I always say, look at savings as paying yourself first. We all work really hard for our money, right? And a lot of times, if you don't have a savings put back, whenever you get paid, you just spend the money, right? You're paying this person, you're buying this, you're shopping, whatever, right? And so you need to really think about savings as you paying yourself first. I've worked hard for my money, right? And so if you're not putting a priority on that, then isn't it really just a transfer day versus a payday? So that's the verbiage that I like to use because it sets a light bulb off for a lot of individuals. So you need to start making it a priority by paying yourself first and trying to put back as much as you can. And you can start small. It doesn't have to be a hefty amount. And if you start with a hefty amount, then you're probably going to get derailed at some point, right? So I always tell people, start small, $10, $25, $50. Whatever you feel like you can afford, and then just build from there. Another good tip is making putting your savings into a savings account that's not attached to your primary checking account. Because if you see it every single day, it is so much easier to transfer funds over when you want to buy something. I have a separate secondary savings account. Every single time I get paid, I have a certain amount that goes to that account and then my kids' account, right? It is out of sight, out of mind. I don't have to think about it. I never see it hit my checking account, and you'll be so surprised at how quickly it accumulates a balance. And you just, again, all you have to do is start small. And then again, automate the savings too. So have it tied to your paycheck. Every single time you get that direct deposit, have it automatically go to that secondary savings account. And I always say that a different financial institution is probably best. You can get a secondary savings account at your existing financial institution, but it's even more difficult to get to those funds if it's somewhere else.
You've alluded to it throughout, but touch on kind of the a la carte different things, the different products and services. When you look at Ascend Federal Credit Union, give us a little bit of a teaser of some of the different products and services.
Yeah. So I will say that credit unions in general are people helping people. And so we typically have higher dividends on our savings accounts and our checking accounts. We have a rewards checking account where it's very similar to the rewards that you get for spending things on a credit card, but it's your checking account, so you're not going into debt. So we have several different options. A lot of times, too, with credit unions like Ascend, you will see that we have little or no fees, where bigger banks typically have more. And when it comes to lending and looking at someone's overall picture, right, the big picture, like what is the best thing for this individual? Sometimes we're a little bit more lenient when it comes to lending that makes sense, right? A good example that I have of that is I have a friend that his friend lived in Denver and he moved here, got a great opportunity in Middle Tennessee, moved to the Franklin Brentwood area. In Denver, he didn't have to have a vehicle. He was able to just take public transportation or walk wherever he needed to go. Coming to Middle Tennessee, he was working in Nashville, but lived in Franklin Brentwood and really needed an auto vehicle. And so all of the bigger banks would not lend to him because all he had was an offer letter. We considered that. So that's just a good example of different ways that a credit union can look at that big picture, right? And we will consider things if it's in our members' best interest. And then, of course, mortgages, a good thing that sets us apart is most of the time when you get a mortgage, companies will sell that off. And so you may have a mortgage that you start with one company and then it goes to 3 different other ones in the lifetime of that loan. We keep all of our mortgages in-house. So if you get a mortgage with us or HELOC or anything like that, it stays with us.
We'll wrap up with where we can go to carry this conversation forward, get more information on Ascend Federal Credit Union.
Yeah, so the best place to go to access our socials or our phone number is ascend.org. If you're interested in any of our financial literacy resources and offerings, then you can go to ascend.org/financial education. Again, you do not have to be a member to utilize those modules and those online resources, so they are free to the community.
Awesome. Well, Tosha, thank you for all you and your amazing team do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.